welcome back. My name's Angela McCall. We're up to chapter 7 now on the Solar2D Getting Started tutorial series and doing our own version of the walkthroughs of their tutorials. Today we are dealing with the sound effects and music, as it were. It's been a couple of weeks since I last filmed the other 6 videos, so we're going to just do a quick recap and then we're going to get right into adding sound and music to our game. So quickly jumping over to the left hand monitor screen. You guys know that we've been following through, so I'm just going to keep following and doing the walkthrough as per their tutorial. So we're going to learn how to preload and the difference between preloading and obviously the streaming of the sound, adding different sound effects, adding the background music, disposing of it. They've got little extra credit for some extra tasks we can do if we want to, and then we're pretty much getting onto the deployment in the next videos. So without further ado, let's quickly take a quick look at where we're at. So we've got our Star Explorer game, we've got all of these files going on down here. You can see here in temporary memory just behind myself, let me just move myself out of the way, down here in the bottom right corner of my screen we've got our scores that are saved in our temporary file or our permanent memory if it was an actual device, and then over on the left hand side we have the composer screen. So let's go to the tutorial and literally crack on. So there are basically there are 2 ways to load audio into our app, okay? And it depends on what we're using the audio for. So basically we're going to preload it in first of all, so that the app itself is aware that these music files exist long before we actually use them, and then obviously we'll implement the code on how to use it. So once loaded, the sound can be played as many times as needed using the audio play, and it's like so basically we're going to load the sound into the game and give it a handle, which is basically putting it in a variable, and then whenever we shout out about this name we can call the sound. So in this case here they're using the handle explosion sound to basically play this WAV file. Okay, so yeah, so it would have played it 4 times because we've called it 4 times, that's fine. So streaming. So the second method is to then load the audio continuously into the background, which is what you do with music, if you was having a background music app, as it were. And that's so you do the similar sort of thing, but where one is basically load stream, so that's continuous play, the other one is load sound, which is basically a sound effect. So they both work the same way, it's just one will have a continuous play effect and one will have a short sharp burst of whatever it is that we're doing. So we're going to need to add some sounds to our actual game. So they're saying basically we're going to download these source files, and we've got 5 different WAV files here. From what I remember, Solar2D accepts MP3 files or WAV files. I think personally I've always only ever used WAV files, but maybe you can experiment and see what works and what doesn't work for you. So we're going to quickly click on the source files here, downloading them in my downloads folder. Oh, I just need to unzip it first, my bad. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, so downloads, getting started, there we go. So they've got an actual audio folder, so I'm going to copy the whole folder, but there we go, we can see in there all 5 of those WAV files. So I'm just going to copy that, go to my projects and drop in, where is my Star Explorer game, there we go, and I'm just going to paste the audio. So now it can be found here, and if we just minimize that and just come back over here, you can see that there is now an audio file. So if I expand that, we can see that the 5 WAV files are now accessible to our game. Right, so loading the sounds. First we need to load the sounds. Since our sound effects are only going to occur during the gameplay, we can load them in the game.lua file itself, okay? So in the first scene, accessible scene code area, we are going to load in 2 variables that are going to become the handles that basically know our sound effects. So let's just minimize that, give ourselves some space, and I've just enlarged the text to make it easier for you guys to see what's going on. So up here, actually no, we're gonna do it, they've done it down the bottom here after the main group, so I'm gonna keep things the same. So a little bit of space, and we're going to paste in that. So 2 local variables, which means these 2 handles or variables now can only be used within any aspect of the game.lua file itself. Excellent. Okay, then we actually need to load and populate those variables with the actual names and locations. So if you can see here, they've got audio, which is the folder name, and then the actual file name itself. So we are going to do that, and they're going to do that underneath the ship event listeners. So it's been a couple of weeks since I've done this, so I've got to remember where the ship event listeners are. There we go. Let's have a look. There they are, event listeners. So we're going to paste. So now we have populated in the create section. So our variables now know the name of the sound, the file name, and the location. And if you are playing around with these things and we haven't used folders before, please be aware that Lua and Solar2D are case sensitive. So if this was a capital A and I'd wrote the path with a lowercase a, for example, they would interpret that as 2 different things and give you a warning that it's taken a guess at this being the correct file and path location. So just be aware that everything is case sensitive, okay? So now that we've got our sound effects loaded, we need to basically go on to use them, which is what this next section here is, playing sounds. So in our event for our on collision, so basically we need to play an explosion sound, okay? So if you look here, we're in the begin section. So if we've got this touch event where it has begin, move, end, and cancelled. So inside our begin, we are going to play the explosion sound. So let's just take that and the comment as well, keep it as simple and the same as we can. So underneath the display, remove. So let's first of all find our on collision. There we go, expand it, and then if we look where the code is, our object, there we go, it's before the for statement, and so let me just tidy up my code. There we go. So now when that button is clicked and it's pushed down, we are going to call audio play that handle, which happens to now contain the path and the file name, to the sound effects, and it will play. Okay, let's save that for a second. And then the explosion sound should also play whenever an asteroid hits the ship, which makes sense. That event is detected by the second conditional clause on the collision. We also need to do it in the then part of the if statement as well. So we're going to repeat that process. I've also got it in there before the lives. Okay. Oh, my alignment's gone a bit skewy. Let me just tidy up. Okay, so that's when the other event plays the sound effect. That's good. So what's it say now? Finally, let's add the sound effect for our firing lasers as well. So I'm just going to copy that straight inside the fire laser function. So fire lasers up here, straight inside before it gets into the nitty gritty of anything else. Save, and there we go. Now we can save the game and we should be able to play. So let's have a look. Let's go back to our game. Let me just minimize this actually. Okay, so here we are. We're going to play. I don't know if you're going to hear it through the speakers or not, but we're going to give it a go. Our asteroids are coming onto screen. We're going to fire. Excellent. So the firing one works, and we're going to crash into things. There we go. We've just exploded. So there we go. We know that is all working. Let's just die so we can get this game back to where we need it to be. There we go. Excellent. It'll take us back to the menu. All good. So nice and quick and easy so far. So now we're going to add the background music in. Okay. The background music, they want to overspan the entire game. So at the moment, the sound effects that we've done contained just inside the game.lua file, but we want, no matter what scene or what file is playing, we want the background music to play. Okay, so it's better to play the different audio tracks in each scene and set the tone for action. So maybe what we've got here is you could have more of a, like, basically saying this is a technique that you can implement to have different sound effects. So when you're looking at the scores, it could be calm and relaxing, but maybe when you're playing the game, it's crazy music, okay? So we're going to start off by literally loading in the music track in exactly the same way as we have done already. So right at the top of the page, underneath here, we're going to add in our variable, which will be the handle for the location and the name of the music track. Okay, then we are going to actually load in. Now, if you notice the difference, this is a load stream as opposed to load sound, but otherwise it's exactly the same process. Okay, where did we put those? Down here. Right, so that's the end of our create section up here, so that's good. So now the rest of it's in the wheel. So let's have a look. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to reserve the channel. Now in Solar2D, there are 32 channels to play music on, and if you don't reserve a channel, then the game and the device will just automatically allocate a channel for that to take place and the sound or the music to take place on. By reserving it, you are basically guaranteeing that the channel is always available, and this is basically what they're doing here now for the background music. Because the background music is going to be a continuous play, it needs to have that dedication. This is what they are basically asking us to do. And if you look right from the beginning of the game, before we even get into the actual game.lua files, on our main.lua, we are basically reserving it right from the very out. So we are going to go into our code. Let's just close that for a second and go to main. There we go. And in here, underneath our random seed, before we go to the scene, we are just going to reserve that channel now. So no matter what happens, we've always got one channel that cannot be freely allocated any sound effects to. Okay, so moving on down, that's basically what that's explaining there. And then what we're going to do is we're also going to set the volume on that channel automatically here as well, right from the outage. So we're basically saying set the volume to basically halfway. So 1 will be maximum volume, 0 would be muted. So on channel 1, no matter what happens, the music's always going to play at 50% volume. Okay, now back into our actual game.lua file. So it now says save it and then return to game.lua, which we're going to do. And then in the did show section of the scene phase, we're going to add in this sound trick now. So I'll talk you through this in just 1 second. So we're in the show did section of the game. So let's close that. Oh, I need to save it. Yes, please. And where's our game? Minimize, and then show did, and they have got this going on down here. There we go. Paste. Oh, again, I don't know why mine's going quite so here. So again, it's the same audio play function call, and obviously it's naming the handle, but this time we're passing to it a second parameter, which is what the curly brackets are, and that parameter has 2 components to it. The first is telling us the channel, so we're telling this music track to play on our dedicated reserved channel, and to loop -1. -1 is basically saying continuously, okay, because the track, every time it plays, it's going to go through the whole loop as a positive 1 number would do, and then it would just play 1 time. But because it's minus, it's never really going to get to there. It's like a 0, and so it's a way of us indicating that this has got to be continuous play, which is essentially what they are explaining here in the code, which is fine. Right, the next thing we need to do is we actually want to stop the music. So when we get to the hide, and we did hide the scene, we don't obviously want the music to keep playing, because we might play different music on the other scene, like on the menu scene or in the scores scene. So we are going to stop the music, that background music, when we leave the game.lua scene. So into our hide did, just down here, before we get to the composer. So in between stopping the physics engine and calling the new scene, removing the scene save, we are going to then stop the music, and then to tidy up, when we finished with the entire scene, we are going to delete and destroy all of those handles that we've just created to save memory in our app. So down here in the destroy, we are just going to paste. So we're basically tidying up our memory and helping the composer keep track of everything that's going on in our game. So there we go, we've added the music. So now let's give it a whirl. Let's come back to our game. In fact, let's minimize that again. Okay, let's give it a nice fresh screen. So I'm going to reload just so you can see everything coming in. Okay, play. There we go, music is playing. I'm just going to turn the volume down so I can talk. But there we go. Our sound effects, we've got our gameplay music, our explosions, which is being hard to hear. I'll stop talking. There you go, you can just hear it, but the background music is quite loud, so we could always adjust that, but there we go, it is working. Okay, so that pretty much is a short and sweet, basically, lesson today. All they've done with the other 2 files that we've not touched on is basically said for extra credit, go and apply them to the menu and the hive scores, which is what I'm going to do now, but in the exact same way that we have just implemented. So that's it. At the bottom here, you can go and find the concepts. And in our next tutorials, we're going to start looking at how we deploy now to the app stores. Cool. So if you found this video and tutorial helpful, this is probably one of the easiest part of the tasks that we've had to do so far, then please be sweet and click the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next videos.